Super! Welcome to the 100th edition of Greg Sensei's Super One Piece course. I'm Greg, I'm a writer for PIECE.com and VJump. And we're here today celebrating 100 columns, doing something a little bit different with the video. And for the video, we're going to have a discussion about One Piece. And you might be asking yourself, for having a discussion, where is everybody else? Well, I've invited some friends from around the world who are One Piece fans and experts to help me discuss their favorite scenes in One Piece. First up, let's go to Robbie.
Howdy y'all, One Piece's fans around the world. I'm Robbie, I'm from Texas, and I'm a big fan of One Piece. My favorite character is Jinbei, and I'm really excited to be part of this special. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being on. Next up we have Alex.
Hello everybody, I'm Alex, as you know. I've been a One Piece fan for about 16 years, since 2002. I saw the Greek version of the anime when I was visiting my father's family in Greece. And my favorite character, since the first One Piece story arc that I saw was the Kuro arc, is none other than Django.
Django.
And I'm Django, that's right. I love the weird characters.
Now, can you tell us what Pirate King is in Greek?
I think it's Vasilas to Pirates. Pirates. I can understand Greek a lot better than I can speak it, so I probably just butchered that.
This might be the actual first educational thing that has come out of my column, so.
Well, wonderful. You know, I'm very happy and thankful to be part of this discussion today, so thank you.
All right, next up we have Ed.
Hello everybody, my name is Ed. I just want to say hello to all the One Piece fans all over the world. I've been a One Piece fan for 13 years now. I first was introduced to it by a friend of mine in college who was taking a class about writing about comic books. A Japanese friend of mine gave me the first volume of One Piece, and I've been off since then. My favorite character is Roronoa Zoro, and in my free time I like to do a radio show, internet radio show, a podcast about One Piece.
This class that you had in college, so you actually get to study Japanese comics in college?
Well, it wasn't exactly that. It was more a class about learning how to research and write in a collegiate setting. Our topic just happened to be sequential art or comic books. I actually was writing about Alan Moore's comics, typical freshman, American comics. But a Japanese friend of mine introduced me to One Piece. That's what she was writing about in the class.
And last up, we have Steven.
Hey, what's up, all you One Piece maniacs? My name is Steven. I'm 34, and I've been a fan of One Piece for almost 20 years, since the first time I saw it when I was visiting Yokohama in 1999. And I have been reading it ever since. And believe it or not, in 2011, since 2011, I have been the official translator for the English version of the One Piece manga. And so it's been a very long journey for me.
And around what arc would that have been, Stephen, that you picked up?
That would be just at the end of the Fishman Island arc. So a lot of the New World has been my work in English.
All right, well, we're very lucky to have you, and very happy to have this discussion today with all of us about our favorite scenes. Robbie, we're going to start with you. What's your favorite scene in One Piece?
Oh, there's just so many to choose from. There's so many big moments and emotional flashbacks and great characters. But when I think back to the first time One Piece made a really big impression distinctly on me, it was early on in the series when they visited Syrup Island and they met Usopp. And the villain of the island was Kuro. He had a quirky thing he did with his hands where he would adjust his glasses like this with the palm of his hand. And at the time I just thought, wow, this is just another weird, ridiculous thing about this series. We're supposed to take this guy seriously as a villain? Like, this is so dumb. Like, I was liking the series okay, but I was still trying to come to grips with the weird aspects of it. And then later in the arc, we found out the reason Kuro does this is he has these giant claws on his hands to avoid scratching his face. And I just went, that is the coolest thing ever! And that's just sort of the first time I was really blown away in the story by the fact that Oda could just set up something that seemed like a silly, goofy, weird quirk thing, and then have a really solid story reason for it later.
It's great how he's able to do that as the series continues as well. I mean, if you think to Water 7, he gave us a great cast of characters who had a very particular way of speaking or didn't speak, and then when the reveal came that they were all CP9, they spoke as with the masks on, but nobody realized it in the comic because they spoke in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And even just from that Kuro arc, there was also Kuro faking his own death and breaking that Navy officer's jaw, and we later find out that character is Captain Morgan. So even back then, Oda was putting these connections in. Yeah.
It's funny, Robbie, you mentioned the glasses bit where you push them up like that. I continued to do this, and my girlfriend asked me why, and I told her, oh, it's from One Piece, and she says, oh, well, that's dumb. But little does she know that it's really helpful when you're eating really spicy potato chips, so you don't actually touch your eyes.
Well, Robbie, are there any ways that One Piece has affected your life?
It's how I met my wife.
Your wife?
That's big.
After I started getting into the series, I found out that the Japanese story was a little bit further ahead than the American release. So I looked around online to find the wider community in forums and discuss the series. And I became really big into that for a long time up until currently. I've been in the fandom for 10 years, and I met my wife there, who was from Canada, and I'm from Texas. So never would have met her otherwise. So thank you, Oda-sensei, for your series that has brought us together.
It's doing that around the world, apparently. Even in volume 88, in the SBS, they mentioned that there was another couple that had come together thanks to One Piece. Thanks to the SBS, actually. So, wow, SBS.
And this is in a series that has no romance.
That's a biggest... All right, well, thank you for sharing that with us, Robbie. All right, next up, we're going to go to Alex. What's your favorite scene?
So, I have many favorite scenes, like Robbie, and for many different reasons, but one of the things that keeps me coming back to One Piece, of course, is Oda's limitless creativity. And part of that, of course, is the vast array of devil fruit abilities that the ability users have. And the further you go along in the series, the weirder they get. And one touchstone, of course, is during the Alabasta portion where Usopp and Chopper are fighting Miss Merry Christmas and Mr. Four. And Mr. Four's weapon, Lasso, comes into the scene, and he is a gun that has eaten a devil fruit, the dog fruit model Dachshund, and Usopp is very curious about this, and like, how can a thing eat a devil fruit? And Miss Merry Christmas says, oh, just because, that's why, you don't need to know that. And and that's what I love about the series, is that there's always a half-baked explanation for the most ridiculous thing. Whenever I tell people to read One Piece, I say, oh, well, it's really weird and fun. And they're like, oh, well, how so? And I say, oh, well, for example, there is a gun, or a dog that's actually a gun that has a cold and sneezes baseballs that are time bombs.
Oh, you put it like that.
So read One Piece.
And they're baseballs because it's a dog, of course, right?
Yes. Well, no, Mr. 4 is a number 4 batter, so it makes sense.
Of course, he's the home run man.
That's right.
That's and what's great are sometimes even some of these lightly explained situations can have explanations behind them. Like, for example, objects that eat devil fruits. We're definitely waiting on someone for that answer, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Peterman,
yeah. Peterman.
Peterman.
No, of course, it's Dr. Vegapunk, of course.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Alex. And next up, we're going to go to Ed. What's your favorite scene?
Well, Greg, the scenes that I'm most attracted to are the ones that sort of bring out the moral themes of One Piece, the soul of One Piece. And with respect to that, I chose the speech that Dr. Hiruluk gives at the base of the Drum Castle in the Drum Island arc. Because the Drum Island arc is sort of this, you think of it as a detour initially, because we have this mission to save the Kingdom of Alabasta, save Princess Vivi's kingdom, but when the crew is in crisis, we have to go find a doctor, Nami is sick. So we get this sort of, we weren't expecting this when we landed on this island, to get this sort of emotional story and pick up a new crew member. And we get to see Chopper's past and how he's rejected by his people and how he learns to sort of, he remains his, he's got his sort of pure heart and warm soul, and Dr. Heroic nurtures that in him to the point where he doesn't want Chopper to know that he is going to die, but he feels that he has left enough of his sort of teachings with him so that he can fulfill his own dreams further on, and he wants to spare Chopper that, so he goes up to the castle, and he's relieved to see that there's no crisis there. It was actually a trap for him, and he sort of gives this speech intending, especially for Wapol to hear it, but I think also for Dalton to hear it, that when does a man die? It's not when he's shot, it's not when he's poisoned, it's not when he's it's when he is forgotten. That's sort of one of the main moral stories of One Piece, is that as long as you demonstrate your example for others to follow, if it's right, people will, and they'll inherit that and pass it down and imitate it. And it really works on Dalton as well as on Chopper, they're both there for it. And Dalton takes this sort of example, because we see him earlier at the Reverie where Princess Vivi of Alabasta gets hit by Wapol for speaking up, and she sort of models this behavior of a monarch. That's what Dalton sees. What he saw in Wapol's father, he sees it in Vivi as well. So he tries to model that by becoming the leader of the country. And I really appreciate that character movement and character development with Dalton as well as with Chopper.
It's great that you bring that up, because I hope that Japanese fans can see that some of Oda Sensei's work and his expressions for life and what life means and when a person truly dies are something that can cross cultural boundaries. That's really great. I think that happy to hear that.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite moments too.
And I wanted to mention one other thing. They use this beautiful piece of Romantic era music by Franz Schubert, the Ave Maria. It really adds to the scene to use this sort of, it's just really beautiful music that comes from a sort of a different time, and it really adds, it's a little out of place, but that actually I think enhances the scene.
Stephen, do you have anything to offer on the music aspect of that and the importance of music in the series?
Yeah, well, I believe that Oda Sensei has said in interviews and in his own comments that that it's like it's not fair that the animation gets to use this music that he can't put into paper, that you can pull on the heartstrings with these great pieces of classical music or just the composed music for the series, and that it adds such an extra dimension to the emotions, that the feelings that the scene is pulling out of you as the viewer, that it's really hard to achieve that same effect when you're just drawing it on paper.
And I was reminded of it again when I was looking at the One Piece magazines that came out recently, and they have Oda's his playlist, what he's been listening to, printed in the back. I really like those.
All right, let's move on to Steven. What's your favorite One Piece scene?
All right, the one that I wanted to talk about is in Volume 6 here. I'm going to hold it up. This is the volume where we first get introduced to Dracula Mihawk when he interrupts the scene on the Baratier. And this was so exciting to me the first time I saw it, because up until that point, it was a very kind of simple, traditional adventure manga. Is what you call Odo in Japanese, very orthodox. And we go to these little islands and we find a new companion who will join us on our journey. And it's comes one after the other. And this scene is just remarkable because of how it completely destroys what you expect from this story. Not only is we're focused on this bad guy Don Krieg, who's menacing the crew and menacing the Baratier restaurant, but then we have this new character Mihawk who appears and is shown to be just completely beyond anyone else in this scene. He's so much more powerful, and he belongs to this different class of pirates that we learn about called the Seven Warlords. And there are so many things that this does. Nami disappears. We don't know what happened to her, and we have this great moment for Zoro where he's going to duel the greatest swordsman in the world, and he fails, and we've never really seen that before for our heroes, and it shows you so much potential of the scope of what One Piece story can encompass, that all of a sudden it's not just as simple as find a new friend and find a bad guy and beat them and move on, but there's a much larger world to explore and to come to understand, and that there are more complex stories that can be told. And this was the first moment where you really get a sense of what the potential for this storytelling in this series is.
It's a model of a very powerful character who also has a sense of honor and a code, but also he's very nonchalant towards Zoro because Zoro isn't on his level. He sort of he almost kind of limp wrists his sword a little bit when he pulls it off of his neck, and he's like, I don't have anything smaller than this. Like, what's wrong with you? And he sort of disrespects Zoro at the beginning of the fight, but Zoro earns his respect by the end of the fight, and he sort of leaves, heartened by his experience because he sees the sort of spirit inside of him.
Yeah, there's so many things that scene does, from storytelling to character development, and it's in action, and it's extremely exciting in so many different ways.
It's a good way of seeing a slice of the world that Oda has in store for us. Of course, we knew nothing about it at the time, but now we see how progressing through into the Grand Line, and through the Grand Line we're building up and up and up to these 7 warlords, and now we're at a place where even the warlords, the warlords themselves, are outshadowed by the emperors. And even the emperors are now kind of outshining the emperors. Well, you thought this emperor was big. Well, this one's crazy big. So
yeah,
it's definitely an impressive way of showing us a part of that world that's waiting for us.
Yeah, Oda's been really good about his power scaling throughout the series. The world has always been exactly as big as it is, and a lot of manga have a problem where each villain will just be stronger than the last for no reason. But here it all makes sense. There's context for everybody being the strength they are, and he showed from even very early on some of the strongest guys in the world. And he's played fair and been really good about being consistent about who's as powerful as who's stronger, who's weaker. When we saw Whitebeard in action, he was the strongest man in the world.
We saw Shanks in action in the first chapter, and he was, Shanks was intentionally withholding his strength so as not to make a scene while trying to lay low in the East Blue, so it kind of makes sense for him to act the way he does in chapter 1.
Yes, I really love how Oda Sensei teases us a little bit. He shows us a glimpse of what is yet to come, or even just half-heartedly mentions it. Like, for example, Jinbei is mentioned on their way to Arlong Park, and we don't actually see him for upwards of like 50 volumes later. Or Big Mom, we only get to see her through the phone snail conversation with Luffy, and then we don't get to meet her until a little while later as well. And Kaido is another really great example of a
jumping from the sky.
Yeah, and his might be even bigger because as this might be a tease, but this is how powerful he is. Here's an idea of how powerful he is, and we still have yet to see him fight or do anything like that. So
yeah. And then does it with a lot of other characters too, like Pudding. He showed up for one panel. It's just, who is this three-eyed girl that's not saying any dialogue? She seems interesting, and we don't hear or see anything about her for another couple of years. It's like, oh, she's Sanji's fiance.
Or Silver's Rayleigh, we didn't see anything about him for over a decade, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it always helps to pay attention and to notice every single background character, like every single one, because they're always they might show up later. That's what I love.
You guys are great. I don't even have anything to add to that. So why don't we start to round off here? I'm going to ask if anybody has any final messages that they'd like to convey to Oda Sensei through the video or to the fans around the world. We're going to start with Robbie.
Thank you, everybody, for following One Piece and making it as big and enduring as it is. It's because it is popular as it is in Japan that it even made it to America, I think. And like I said at the start, it's how I met my wife. It's been a huge, important part of my life for over a decade now. It's just, I can't think of a world without One Piece. Thank you all for sharing in this great story with all of us. And thank you, Oda Sensei, for creating it.
Thanks, Rob. All right, next, Alex.
Thank you to everybody in the world who has made One Piece what it was. If it weren't for you all, then it probably never would have come here to the United States, and I never would have gotten to really dig deep into it, and it wouldn't be as accessible for me to lend out to friends of mine who would want to read it as well. One Piece has been a major influence on me, my art, the way I view things. I've met some of my best friends through One Piece, and I really enjoy the message of camaraderie that it conveys. It feels very close to my heart because of that. So thank you to everybody involved in the production of One Piece, and especially thank you to you, Oda Sensei.
All right, and Ed.
Well, first I wanted to say thank you to Oda Sensei, and also to the global One Piece community. I've found you all to be very sort of welcoming and encouraging, and I don't feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on in the One Piece community. Everyone is very... we like to get together and celebrate the spirit of One Piece, which I think is very welcoming and very... it promotes togetherness and a way of getting along with people and respecting people. I think One Piece sort of symbolizes that, and we've been able to reach a lot of people through our radio show that we do, the podcast, the radio show, as well as the conventions that we go to meet One Piece fans and One Piece cosplayers, and it really just sort of shares a spirit of fun and a spirit of adventure, and that's One Piece for me.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. All right, and Steven.
Gosh, One Piece is so important to me. It was really the reason that I wanted to be a professional translator, and so it's just been such an honor and a joy to actually be involved with the production of the English edition of it. And obviously, none of this would have been possible without so much support from fans around the world, and from the hard work of Oda Sensei himself. And so I just want to enjoy this for as long as I can. And so I hope that everyone out there continues to support the series, and that Oda Sensei continues to take care of his health, so that One Piece can continue until we reach the end of our adventure.
That's a great message from all of you. Thank you so much. Before we head off, I've noticed something. It's all of our favorite scenes seem to be from the Paradise Saga, from the first half from East Blue through Grand Line. And we call them our favorite scenes, but I mean, are they really? I know I have at least 5 favorite scenes from One Piece. Yeah. I'd really love to do this again. And if you're interested in seeing us discussing this again, or in the future on this column, please let us know. Well, guys, again, I want to thank you all for making time out of your very busy schedules to discuss this with us. And thanks to all the fans out there who are reading the column. And, of course, thank you to Oda Sensei for making such a wonderful series. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So long.